You have not yet obeyed the Lord.
Hollywood remembers the Ten Commandments as a triumph. What it forgets? The film nearly collapsed. The studio tried to stop it. Cecil B. DeMille suffered a heart attack above the set and returned 2 days later.
I do not know your God, nor will I let Israel go.
Who are you to make their lives bitter in hard bondage?
Audrey Hepburn was rejected. The Red Sea could have failed. Any one of those disasters should have killed the movie. None did. 70 years later, Hollywood has more money and better technology, yet it cannot make another one. Why?
Behold his mighty...
Hollywood thought this movie was impossible. Start in the place nobody remembers, the meetings where powerful men tried to shut it down.
Are you afraid of Moses?
Yes, because now he holds Ethiopia in his left hand, Goshen.
Because to the money side of Hollywood, the Ten Commandments didn't look like a masterpiece. It looked like a disaster in slow motion.
Remember, my sweet, that you must be wife to the next pharaoh.
The budget climbed past $13 million. That made it, by a wide margin, the most expensive movie anyone had ever attempted, and it kept climbing. Every week it cost more. Every week, more people at the studio quietly waited for it to collapse and take their careers with it.
Baka, put 1,000 slaves to removing the sand until the stone settles to its base.
The executives back in Los Angeles were losing their nerve. One of them, watching the money pour into the desert with no end in sight, sent a telegram to the set that said, almost word for word, "You have lost your mind. Stop filming and come home." Think about that. Not a critic, not a rival. The studio's own money begged the production to stop.
Great Pharaoh, he is the son of your body.
I need no help, Moses, to hold what is mine.
It didn't stop. And that refusal is the whole story, because the reason it didn't stop wasn't the money or the sets or the cast, it was one man. The biggest problem on the biggest movie in the world was the person sitting in the director's chair. The director was racing against death. Cecil B. DeMille was 73 years old when he went to Egypt to build the ancient world.
Patient with me. I'd like to talk to you about this wonderful soul. In the original book of Exodus.
Let that land. The largest, riskiest production in Hollywood history was being run by a man most people his age had stopped working entirely. A man who would turn 75 before audiences ever saw a frame of it. The oldest working director in Hollywood.
Research scientists have been working in a dramatic race against time. A life or death race.
And he knew what everyone around him knew. He was old. His heart was bad. This was very likely the last film he would ever make. He'd spent half a century becoming the single biggest name in movies, the man who practically invented the Hollywood epic, and now he wanted one final, impossible masterpiece before the end. A capstone. Something no one could ever top. So he pushed. He wouldn't sit when he could stand. He wouldn't hand off a decision he could make himself.
That Michelangelo caught so magnificently in marble.
Out in the desert heat, day after day, he drove a production of tens of thousands and lost 20 pounds off his own body doing it.
And Josephus wrote some 50 years later and watched the destruction of Jerusalem.
Everyone told him to slow down. He refused. In his mind, there wasn't time to slow down. Slowing down was how the movie died with him unfinished. That was the whole point. And then, one day, high above the set, his body finally gave out. The heart attack that should have ended everything. A camera had failed. It was mounted at the top of the giant gates built for the Exodus, 130 feet up.
It's the 10 Commandments plus the blessings of the Lord. And Father, we thank you.
DeMille was 73. He climbed it anyway. He reached the top, and his heart gave out right there, high above the set, in the heat, with thousands of people below him waiting to film the biggest scene of the picture. The doctors were clear. A heart attack at his age, doing what he was doing, was a warning most men don't get twice.
Philo wrote at the time that Jesus of Nazareth walked the earth.
Stop. Rest. Let someone else finish, or no one. On the set, the crew went quiet. Many were sure they just watched the old man take his last breath, that the production, and DeMille with it, was finished. You don't survive that and go back to running the hardest shoot in the world. 2 days later, he walked back onto the set.
There are those who would pay much for what my eyes have seen.
Do you haggle with me like a seller of melons in the marketplace?
Against every doctor's order, against all sense, against the pleading of the people around him, he picked up exactly where he'd left off, as if the heart attack had been an interruption, not a warning. He'd decided, quietly and completely, that he would rather finish this movie than survive it.
Yours, Ramses, will be nowhere. But in my judgment book, you have accused your brother falsely.
And here's the part nobody expects. The film didn't get smaller and safer after that, it got bigger. A man who just cheated death started reaching for things even harder to pull off, starting with something Hollywood had never truly tried. They didn't fake ancient Egypt.
Can taxes be collected from dead cattle and blighted harvests?
Does fear rule Egypt, or do I?
Here's what most people assume when they watch it. Backlots, painted skies, California standing in for the Nile. Almost none of it. DeMille took his production to Egypt, the actual sand, the actual sky, the actual scale of the place.
You shall see darkness cover Egypt when the sun climbs high to noon.
He moved equipment across an ocean and a continent to get there. Cameras, costumes, tons of gear hauled to the edge of the Sinai. Then he filled that landscape with people. Not dozens, not hundreds. He put something like 25,000 extras into a single sequence. A human ocean moving on his command out in the open desert.
For all of Egypt will be barren from the cataracts to the sea.
Will my father free the slaves?
Stop and picture the nerve that takes. There's no undo out there, no second server. If the light goes, if the crowd breaks, you've lost a fortune in an afternoon. DeMille wasn't building a movie set, he was rebuilding a lost world at full size and betting the studio's money that he could control it.
Does the world bow to an empty throne?
Empty.
Does a pharaoh harden his heart against his son?
But even standing in the real Egypt with a real crowd wasn't enough.
Man shall be ruled by law, not by the will of other men.
Because the single most famous moment in the film couldn't be found anywhere on Earth. It had to be manufactured. Once, with no way to know if it would work. The miracle that nearly failed. The parting of the Red Sea. The image the entire movie is remembered for.
Who shall withstand the power of God?
Now understand the trap they were in. There were no computers, no digital anything. If you wanted to part a sea in 1956, you had to physically do it and film it in a way no one had ever quite managed.
Janice, do you see?
Moses' serpent swallows up the others.
Here's how they did it. They built enormous tanks and filled them with hundreds of thousands of gallons, a man-made ocean sitting on a studio lot. They released it all at once, flooding the set in a controlled collapse. Then they ran the film backwards, so the falling flood became two walls of water rising and pulling apart.
Fire dies.
Sound the pursuit.
Read that again. The most sacred image in the movie is a wall of water, filmed in reverse, and the whole production balanced on top of it. This wasn't a scene they could shrug off and reshoot cheaply.
Soylent Green, yes, which is again, one of the best movies I ever had, primarily because of Eddie.
It was the reason the film existed, the single image every ticket had been sold on. If the effect looked fake, the miracle looked fake, and the biggest movie ever made had no ending worth the price.
Through the rest of the 50s, the work never stops. In 1956, you make your first Hollywood epic, The Ten Commandments.
Conqueror already conquered?
Now feel the pressure. No proven method, no test footage to copy, no computer to fix it later. Just engineering, water, timing, and nerve, and a director who'd already had a heart attack, watching to see if the one shot that mattered most would hold.
That you may know the power of the Lord. For 7 days Egypt will thirst.
Somehow, it worked. The walls stood, the illusion held, and that's when the story stops being about a difficult shoot and becomes something nobody in Hollywood was prepared for. Hollywood couldn't believe it worked. The people who'd sent that telegram, stop filming, come home, waited for the disaster they were sure was coming. It never came.
Why, your will be law in Egypt when you are crowned and sceptered as...
The Ten Commandments didn't just succeed, it became one of the highest grossing films in the history of the medium. It made back its enormous cost many times over, pulling in well over $100 million at a time when a movie ticket cost pocket change. For years, only one film in all of Hollywood had ever earned more, Gone with the Wind.
I protected the helpless. I nourished the orphan.
Sit with the reversal. The production everyone expected to become a cautionary tale, the punchline, the warning to every director who dreamed too big, became the opposite. It became the standard, the thing every epic afterward would be measured against. Hollywood had been certain the movie would prove that some things simply can't be done.
So let it be written.
Instead, it proved they could, which only deepens the mystery we're chasing. Because if it could be done once and it made a fortune, then why has it never truly been done again? Hold that.
The obelisk, yes. But not with certain accusations made against you.
By whom?
You raided the temple granaries,
Because the deeper you go into how this film was actually assembled, the more you realize how much of it hung on decisions that almost went the other way. Starting with the man in the center of it. Moses was almost somebody else. Picture Moses. You're picturing Charlton Heston. The face, the voice.
If there is one more plague on Egypt, it is by your word that God will bring it. And there shall be so great a cry throughout the land.
The beard going white on the mountain. It was very nearly not him at all. DeMille's first choice for Moses was an actor named William Boyd, famous at the time as the cowboy Hopalong Cassidy. Boyd turned it down. He worried that audiences would look at Moses and see a cowboy, and that his own fame would swallow the film. So the role opens back up, and the way DeMille finally filled it tells you everything about how his mind worked. He didn't run a normal search. He looked at Charlton Heston and saw something specific, a resemblance to Michelangelo's famous statue of Moses. The same broad brow, the same carved stillness.
Take your people, your cattle, your God, and your pestilence. Take what spoils from Egypt you will, but go!
DeMille looked at a living actor and saw a piece of Renaissance sculpture staring back. That's not casting. That's a man assembling an image in his head and refusing anything that didn't match it. And that refusal, that total control over every face on screen, is about to cost one of the most beloved stars in the world the biggest role of her life. Even Audrey Hepburn wasn't safe. By the mid-50s, Audrey Hepburn was one of the most adored actors alive.
I was in England when the war broke out. I was alone in England. My mother brought me back to Holland where they were living. And
an Oscar, a face on every magazine. The kind of star a studio builds a picture around. She was considered for Nefertiti, the Egyptian queen at the heart of the story, and she wanted it.
Did you miss it at all?
Well, I had so many other things to do, which I liked so much. I didn't really miss it, no.
Yeah.
DeMille said no. Think about how strange that is. A director working on a wildly expensive film that could still fail turns away one of the biggest box office draws in the world, a name that would have guaranteed ticket sales. He didn't care. She didn't fit the picture in his head.
Shooting that day.
Yeah. Now, you won an Oscar for Roman Holiday, right? I've heard now a lot of people keep Oscars in strange places. Somebody mentioned the other night they use them as doorstops.
He had the precise vision of what that queen had to look like and move like, and not even Audrey Hepburn's fame was going to bend it. The role went to Anne Baxter instead. This is the pattern underneath the whole production coming into focus. DeMille wasn't serving the stars served the vision. Nobody was bigger than the movie. Not the money men, not the doctors, not Audrey Hepburn.
they said he was so great and so friendly. He's asked me about my age, cosmetic surgery.
It sounds monstrous. A man who'd turn away the most beloved actress alive because a face didn't match a picture in his head. And yet that same immovable man was about to do something almost nobody else in Hollywood had the courage to do, for an actor everyone else was running away from. He quietly saved another man's career. Stop the spectacle for a moment, because the most human thing DeMille ever did happened off to the side, where the cameras weren't pointed.
Blighted harvests.
Does fear rule Egypt?
In the 1950s, Hollywood had a blacklist. If your politics were suspect, the work dried up, the phone stopped ringing, careers ended.
The power of your God is a cheap magician's trick.
People were afraid to be seen near the names on that list. Edward G. Robinson was one of those names. A giant of the screen, and because of his left-wing politics, a man Hollywood had quietly stopped calling. His career was, for all purposes, over. DeMille cast him anyway as Dathan, right in the middle of the biggest, most-watched movie in the country. Understand the nerve that took. At the height of the fear, the most powerful director in Hollywood handed a blacklisted actor his life back in the most visible film imaginable, where every studio boss in town would see the defiance. Robinson never got over it. He said plainly that DeMille gave him back his self-respect. Here's what makes it land harder. DeMille was a conservative. The two men were on opposite sides of the very politics that got Robinson blacklisted. He didn't do it out of agreement. He did it because he refused to be told who he could hire, which is a strange kind of mercy from a man who, on his own set, showed almost none. Because the same iron will that saved Edward G. Robinson ruled everyone else like a god. The man directing Moses ruled like Pharaoh. Here's the irony sitting at the center of it all. The Ten Commandments is a story about a tyrant. Pharaoh, a ruler who commands thousands, who will not bend, whose word simply becomes reality. And the man making that movie ran his set exactly the same way. DeMille stood above the crowds with a megaphone and moved thousands of people with his voice. What he said?
I warn you, Moses, the temple grain belongs to the gods.
What the gods can digest will not sour in the belly of a slave.
Happened. He controlled every extra, every animal, every camera, down to the smallest gesture. On his set, there was one will, and it was his. There's a famous moment that says it all. Mid-scene, in front of hundreds of extras, he spotted one young woman talking when she should have been silent, and stopped the entire enormous production in front of everyone to deal with her. Sit with the contradiction. The man who defied the blacklist to give one actor his freedom back would not allow a single extra to whisper without his permission. The man directing the story of Moses often behaved more like the ruler Moses stood against. That's not a flaw in the story, that is the story. Because that exact combination, the mercy and the tyranny in one impossible person, is the thing we've been circling from the start. It made the movie, and it's the reason no one has ever made another. Though to see why, you first have to watch what this one did to Hollywood itself. The movie that changed what Hollywood expected. After the 10 Commandments, the rules changed. It didn't just make money, it reset what a movie was allowed to be. Bigger sets, longer run times, real spectacle you could feel in your chest. It turned the biblical epic into an event, a film so large that going to see it felt like a pilgrimage. For a while, Hollywood chased it. Studios poured fortunes into other giant epics, trying to bottle the same lightning. Casts of thousands, run times that needed an intermission. Some were magnificent. A few ran so far over budget they took their whole studios down with them. But watch what was actually happening. Everyone was trying to copy it. Nobody could reproduce it. They matched the money, they matched the length, they hired the crowds. They kept missing the thing underneath, the thing that made it feel real instead of expensive. They didn't understand what they were actually trying to recreate. They thought it was the scale. It wasn't the scale. And the moment you see what it really was, you understand why the copies never worked and why they never will. Why Hollywood never did it again. So Hollywood tried to reproduce it, and here's the strange thing. It failed every time, even though it had more than DeMille ever did. More money, better cameras, effects DeMille couldn't have dreamed of. On paper, every later studio was better equipped to make this movie than the man who actually made it. So why does every attempt come out hollow? Start pulling the threads, and one by one, the ingredients go missing. The real seas went first. Modern movies don't flood real tanks with no backup and pray. They build the miracle inside a computer where nothing is ever truly risked, nothing can truly fail, and somehow nothing feels truly real. Safety drained the danger right out of the image. Then the crowds went. 25,000 living people moving as one in a real desert became a few hundred multiplied by software. The scale got easier and emptier at the same time. Then the patience went. No studio now hands one person years, a fortune, and total command, then stands back. Today there are committees, insurance, test screenings, 100 people who can say no. Every one of those losses matters. But notice they're all symptoms. Strip them away and you're left staring at a single missing ingredient underneath all of them. The one thing that made the risks worth taking and the crowds obey and the patience possible. And it's the one thing no amount of money can put back. The real miracle wasn't on screen. It was the man. That's the ingredient that vanished and never came back. Not the money, not the tanks, not the crowds. Those were only things he could summon because of who he was. You can rebuild the sea. You cannot rebuild the man. Now go back to that heart attack because you didn't have the whole story. A 73-year-old warned his heart could stop, climbed 130 feet in the desert heat to check a camera he didn't trust anyone else to touch. It nearly killed him. 2 days later, he walked back on set knowing it could happen again and kept going to the end. That wasn't recklessness. From here, with everything you've seen, it reads differently. A man deliberately spending the last of himself on one final impossible thing. He would finish this movie or die trying, and did not seem to care which. 3 years later, he was gone. It was the last film he ever made. He'd been right about the clock all along. So every impossible piece, the studio he defied, the sea he faked, the queen he refused, the blacklisted man he saved, was never about spectacle. It was one dying man refusing to compromise because he knew he'd never get another chance. That's what no studio can reproduce. Not the budget, the willingness to burn down your own life to finish something perfect.
Now go after the girl. Don't come back without her.
You'll find her.
The greatest miracle in the 10 Commandments was never the one Moses performed. It was the one Cecil B. DeMille performed to get it made and took with him when he went.